we lose 1,900 people a day to suicide. I mean, that breaks down to every 41 seconds. So one, that kind of speaks to how large the challenge is globally. And it is a global issue. It's not strictly a US thing.
This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, hosted by Chrissy Van. Together, we're uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. On today's episode, we welcome back Derek Gallup to the podcast to kick off Mental Health Month. Derek is a prominent leader in the fitness industry and no stranger to many of you. He previously worked at the executive level for UFC gyms before making a significant shift to focus on mental health advocacy. Last year, he founded SPARKLE, the Carla Gallup Foundation, in memory of his late wife, Carla, who tragically lost her battle with mental illness in 2022 after struggling with depression and anxiety exacerbated by the pandemic's social restrictions. With the alarming statistic that 1,900 people globally lose their lives to suicide each day, the mission of SPARKLE is more crucial than ever. In the episode, Derek will share how the foundation has grown over the past year, discuss the strategic partnerships he's solidified within the fitness industry, and speak to the important link between physical activity and mental health. Before we get to it, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry thought leaders and influencers. I'm your host, Chrissy Van, and this is ATFW. Well, Derek Gallup, I'm so pleased to have you join us on All Things Fitness and Wellness again, especially because it's May, it's Mental Health Month. So I really appreciate you taking the time, first of all.
Chrissy, I'm so thankful to get an opportunity to do this. You just reminded me, it's been a year since you and I got a chance to talk. And I like this, but you know what? I really liked talking to you in person much better. So I'm hoping maybe one of my trips up to Vancouver, we can get a chance to meet in person again.
Well, rumor has it, and we'll get to it, but it could be a Spartan race that could be the key ingredient to do that, eh?
It could be.
Well, I'm really thrilled to have you because for anyone that missed the episode, I do encourage you to go back into our archives, search Derek Gallup, and hear his story because, Derek, you joined in this tremendous sense of vulnerability and coming off the heels of an unimaginable tragedy that you really didn't have that much chronological distance from at the time. And this was all about your beloved wife, Carla Gallup, who sadly passed away from suicide. And I just so appreciated that you have a platform and were willing to use your voice to help others, those that are experiencing mental health challenges and the loved ones that are aiming to support those that are. So before we get into all the details of where SPARKLE has gone, can you please reintroduce what SPARKLE is, what it stands for, and why it was created?
Absolutely. Thank you, Christy. And, I experienced, as you eloquently said, a lot of personal pain, and my wife Carla had gone through pain. My kids, obviously, her family, my family, and going through mental health challenges. And sadly, I've learned a lot about suicide since we last spoke. And one of the best ways that someone explained it to me is that when you think about someone who's going to be jumping out of a burning building, they're not jumping out of the building to end their life. They're jumping out of the building to get away from the pain of that fire. And I really think now, as I've had time to reflect and think about things, that's really what it is. There's just an internal pain that I hope I don't really actually understand. I understand it was there, but I hope I never understand it personally. But that's what's going on. And so, through that, I think through our pain, I've really wanted to turn that into purpose. There has to be something that comes from this. And, SPARKLE kind of came from a couple of things. One was, when Carla was going through the throes of depression at the severest levels, she and I both agreed that the thing that you could kind of describe that was missing was her sparkle. So that was sort of this one, the sparkle was sort of this word that we had agreed was something that was just, gosh, you know what? You can kind of see that somebody loses their sparkle. And then after Carla had passed, I went to some activities from foundations that were set up for survivors of suicide loss. And they were fantastic. They were really, really great. A lot of conversation, a lot of kind of being able to open up and create bonds, social bonds, which is so important. But what I found that was lacking was this element of activity, which for me had been such an important part for my personal journey of kind of keeping my own mental health positive through all these things. And so from that, I kind of started thinking about Sparkle and what were the things that you could kind of bring, what would be sort of this holistic approach to mental health and helping people, whether it's improve mental health, whether it's prevent suicide, or whether it's helping survivors of suicide loss. And so Sparkle, outside of this word that was really important for Carla and me, is also an acronym, which stands for suicide prevention through activity, relaxation, kindness, laughter, and education. And from that, we've created a website, and I'm excited to get a chance to talk to you today about some partners that we're getting that are going to help with each facet of how we can help with people's mental health along this journey with Sparkle. And then the one other piece, Chrissy, I didn't even get a chance to tell you. And it was about, 2 weeks after we were together, I sadly had more tragedy in my family, that I lost my brother. Mm-hmm. So in the span of less than 2 years, I lost my dad, my wife, and my brother. And so for me, that, obviously it's the mental health piece of this has also been really important for me. And so some of this I speak from not only what do we want to do from Sparkle and what do experts say, but there's also what are some of the things that just, they've been helping me through all of these tough times.
Well, and I think it's so important for voices like yours to enter this conversation, because we'll talk a little bit in this about the stigma that exists. And we've come a very long way. I've had a couple of mental health conversations recently. And even if you go back 5 years, 10 years, how therapy was verbalized. If it was in a movie, people would say, oh, they're going to see The Shrink, which is atrocious that we use language like that. It was very, very villainized, almost as if you didn't have it together, then you weren't quite right. And you're like, no, no, no. Thank God the message is shifting, and everyone, absolutely everyone human being that roams this planet should be taking care of their mental health, just like we prioritize our physical health. And you're someone that's really celebrating the link. So since we have spoken last year, because when we did sit down, this is really just in the early phases of inception. So what has the progress been on bringing this foundation to life?
Yeah, it's been really amazing that as I've started to open up more, that other people open up about, whether it's their own personal journey with mental health, whether it's maybe friends, family that are being impacted, loved ones. And so through that, there's been a real big response and an openness to really have some dialogue and get involved together. And so really, we kind of started, our first event was with UFC Gym, and we did our big annual fitness challenge. But throughout that, we also, it culminated in a day that I didn't really know much about, but now I'm very, very close with, is International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day, which is that it's always the Saturday before American Thanksgiving. I always say Thanksgiving, but now I know I got to make sure I'm.
Thanks for helping Canada out over here.
Yes, international here. So with that, we had classes that were and we'd have people talk about maybe somebody they lost or who they were doing this workout for, why this was important to them. That was really great to kind of create some dialogue, create some awareness. We had wristbands that said Sparkle and prevention through activity, that people, if they made a donation, were wearing those. And it was an amazing event. We've got thousands of people engaged in being part of kind of the Sparkle movement. And that's where we got started. And UFC Gym has been and continued to be a fantastic partner. It led into a conversation that I had with someone that I was working with at Spartan with UFC Gym, which then I shared my story of Sparkle, that you've allowed me to share the story. And they said, you have to talk to Joe DeSena, who's the founder of Spartan. And Joe and I got a chance to talk. And one of the things we really shared, kind of two key thought processes around this. One was that the more that we can have activity, traditionally, most of the time, the correlation is the lower depression is going to be. Activity and depression are kind of on this inverse correlation. But the other that Joe shared, and I've felt this for a long time, but I hadn't said it as well as he did. But it really is about, if we choose to do hard things, then life is easier. And so Spartan is one of those things that people, and it's funny because there is almost this fear of a Spartan that I've also learned to kind of how to talk to people about. Like some of the videos I've done, people said, man, you've made it seem so much less scary to do a Spartan. Because here's the reality, Christian, and we'll get into this, but if there's an obstacle you can't do, you know what you do? You just go around, you go to the next one. And that's what people don't really say. You want to test yourself, you do the best you can, but you don't stop. You just keep going. And so Spartan has been a tremendous partner. I've been able to bring that Spartan relationship to Fitness World up in Canada. Is that okay if I share that real quick, what we're doing there?
Oh, please do. I'm like, spill the tea.
Okay. All right, here we go. So we are going. So one of the other cool things that Spartan has allowed this partnership with Sparkle to be is to really incorporate the fitness part of this. So there's a certification for coaches, for trainers through Spartan. You can become certified to help people with obstacle course racing, doing certain workouts in the gym that now really can kind of prepare you for that race. So we're going to have the first ever that they've done, the live certification up in Vancouver in June. And we're also going to have the founder of the DECA, which is a Spartan event, which is like the decathlon of foundational fitness. Yancey Culp is going to come up. They've never done this certain person.
Amazing.
He's going to do it in person. He's from Vancouver, so it's a little bit of a homecoming for him too, which is awesome. Then from that, we're going to end up doing in club in Canby and in South Surrey. We're going to do DECA events there that we're going to host. To events, hopefully get so many members and non-members getting involved in doing this. From there, then that's going to lead into the Seattle Spartan, and we're hoping to kind of have this convoy going down from Fitness World to go participate in the Seattle Spartan. And then the big challenge that Joe DeSena from Spartan has put out for Chris Smith and the team and myself is for us to bring Spartan to Vancouver. So the goal is 2025, there's going to be a Spartan. We actually gave them 4 locations to choose from. So they're going to ask people what location they'd like to do. So that you can actually, if you're a member of Fitness World, you can actually have a voice in bringing Spartan there and what location it's going to be. So I think it's really, really exciting.
Well, and it's going to be awesome to see that come to life. And I have just had a brief encounter with Joe back in my TV days. And I know when he dreams up something that's going to happen, it's going to happen because he's the same one. And I don't know if he still does this, but at the time, everywhere he traveled, he brought a kettlebell with him. It was like that reminder of you're always going to do hard things and this mental stamina. So I fully believe 2025 will come to life. And the rise of fitness racing too, how great to have that certification in gym because members are looking to diversify. They'll feel more mentally prepared. And the thing that I like that you highlighted about this demystifying of what a race like that is really about, not only could you go around the obstacle if need be, but you're also surrounded by a community that's going to champion you while you try and champion you to keep going on the other side. And I think that's such a metaphor for life.
And Chris, you know what's great too is when if you choose to, there's elite, there's the racers, there's age group where you're racing, there's open. And I always encourage people to do the open race because here's the thing: if you're wearing, it's a black headband. If you're wearing the black headband, not only can you go around some obstacles, but you can actually help and get help from people. So like, one of the obstacles was a 7-foot wall that we were doing. And I was helping some, of the more vertically challenged females kind of get up the wall. Right. And it's something that we get to do and we can physically and literally lift others up to reach some of the goals they have. And that's part of what I really loved about the event too.
We have been talking and we do all the time on the podcast about this link. You and I know physical activity directly correlates to our social health when we look at the loneliness epidemic and the mental health side. And obviously, this is a message you're really looking to propel because can you talk to me a little bit about when you were looking for resources yourself and what was lacking in some of those? Because it sounds as though a lot of what you reached out to, that correlation wasn't really something that was being brought to life.
Yeah, and I think there was an element of trying to bring people together in a talking situation, which again is helpful. And when I was going through this, and when I was really in the midst of a lot of it was COVID too, so there wasn't as much face to face, right? There were things that we were on Zooms and different things.
Which I pause you there. Let's not forget, and I know you highlight this. It was everything that numbed our mental health, open and accessible. But heaven forbid if you actually needed help. Exactly.
We don't really, I mean, now I think we're sort of paying for some of the decisions that were made for us back in those times. But, I think it is what it is at this point. But I think, there's so much that I find that being active with a group just brings them together, whether it's, we do coaches certifications for that group. It's almost like there's boot camp for the military that their coaches cert kind of feels like that, doing a Spartan with another group of friends and so forth. Like there's something that brings you together. And so one of the things that I also found as doing this is I would bring this message to a lot of partners that I'd had when I was with out in the fitness industry, and they're really latching on and agreeing that this is what we were going to do. So I want to talk to you a little bit too, man, about some of the partners that and how they fit into Sparkle.
Yeah,
So,
please.
if you kind of say, hey, first kind of the activity side of it, well, of course I have, UFC gym, Fitness World, starting to get some other gyms that are getting interested. So that's exciting. But we've got I wanted to look for an equipment vendor that was accessible. I want people to go to gyms, but I don't want you to have to necessarily go to gyms. So we found TRX. So TRX is our activity partner, which has been fantastic for us. And then one of the other things for me that was really important going through this was also having a community of people that were pushing each other and encouraging each other, challenging each other to work out. And so now we partner with MyZone. So MyZone heart rate monitors, but also really the best way that you can measure effort of your workout. You can make challenges, you get a community of people, you can put up pictures of what you're doing for your workout. So I really think that that's great for bringing us together on this. Of course, I already talked about Spartan. Now in the relaxation area, there's a lot of things happening in the fitness space and some great partners to kind of bring some products to people there. So we've partnered with Hyperice, who works on percussion therapy and vibration therapy. They also own Normatec, which is the compression therapy. So all of those elements really have. And in the fitness space we call it recovery. In the mental health space, recovery can kind of have a little bit of a different connotation. So I went with relaxation. There's been a lot of information around red light therapy and the positive effects from red light, both for recovery for workouts, but also from the mental health standpoint. So we've partnered with LightStim as a red light therapy partner. And then, recovery to me is in relaxation, but I'll call it kind of recovery is nutrition. And so with nutrition, we've partnered with .fit and just, not only the fitness side of it, but just feeling good about what the food that you put in your body can also have such impact on your mental health, your physical health. So I just think that's a really, really important partnership that we have there.
Well, we know the research and the stats speak to all of that as well. Like this is all evidence-based.
Totally. It's not like you and I are just saying, hey, we think this is what's happening. There's a lot of evidence-based research on there. In kindness, I've actually had quite a few people reach out and said, hey, can you help us find therapists through sparklecgf.org? And so I've gone and some of the therapists that I've actually had personal interaction with, we're creating this group to be able to be there to help people, give kind of a free first assessment, see if that's something that because again, a therapist really is that connection. And so is it someone that makes the right connection with you? So that's another area. I just got it's not solidified yet, but I think this is such a great partnership. If we can get this to happen on kindness, is 1-800-Flowers, who also owns several other companies in there. But I just think, man, what a great thing for someone who's wanting to improve their mental health, or we're a survivor of suicide loss. We need those kind of things for kindness also. So that's another great vendor partner that we bring in there. I don't have this one locked up, but I did go to a comedy club about 3 weeks ago.
Amazing. I love stand-up comedy.
It's great. And again, laughter is such a great mental health improver. So we're looking to have some comedy clubs be part of the Sparkle family as well. So I think we're going to have some things where, again, go through Sparkle, you get a discount, they'll make a donation to Sparkle. It's kind of this partnership that we're creating there. So I'm really looking to do that. And then the last one, the education, there's been a lot of great things there. But one of the people I want to go with that's been a gold standard from my career, and I think a gold standard in the industry, is the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And so they have a mental toughness cert, they've got a wellness cert. And so there's some elements there that we're going to be partnering there on the education. Again, I've also got some partners that do great on education, whether it be .fit around nutrition, giving free education, TRX has a certification, the Spartan certification. All those things will be what you can find with a discount through Sparkle. And then if you're doing it there's a donation going to then help people with their mental health and suicide prevention as well.
So many great alignments. And I think it's just a testament. I mean, obviously, you've had a really incredible career within the fitness industry, and as a result, been able to build all of these relationships. And naturally, it takes the tenacity to make a leap to create something that means so much to you and then go out and get people to align with the vision. But it's because you truly understand from lived experience what may be needed and obviously witness some of the gaps that could be bridged. You started things off, I know, with me last year and even in this conversation, saying it was about bringing the pain into purpose. So when you reflect on all that's been accomplished in bringing this foundation to life thus far, what does that mean for you? What has the experience been like for you?
To me, where it really becomes powerful is where there's actual individual stories and individual impacts that you have. And I'll give you one example. I was really excited to put the social post out about the partnership with Spartan when we first got that, and I announced it. And within, Chrissy, it was within 10 minutes of that post. Someone called me, a gentleman called me on the phone and was very upset, was in tears, was having a hard time getting words out. And he was explaining to me that he had just seen the post and that it spoke to him, and it was telling him that he needed to reach out. And he had it was someone I had worked with in the past, had my cell phone number, but it was a general manager that I had worked with, but I hadn't worked with him for 2 years. This was on a Tuesday. He had lost his brother on Saturday before that.
Wow.
And so he and I talked on the phone for 45 minutes. I felt that I was able to give him maybe some comfort. It's hard in that situation, but maybe some comfort, but also just some places to go to be able for him and his family to start, because you don't know what the resources are that are out there that could help. And so I was able to kind of give him some information and point some direction for him. But, knowing that if you're even helping just one person at a time, whether it's, ideally it would be really about suicide prevention, but even if it's about, someone who's going through that pain and being a survivor of suicide loss, the statistics are that people that lose somebody to suicide in their immediate family are at a much higher risk themselves of suicidal ideas, suicidal ideation, or maybe even, attempts. And so it really is important that we're supporting that group as well. But that, for me, it's some of the stories of, when I've shared this, and I've had people tell me about, like, people from UFC fighters that would tell me about how, because, when someone's behind a computer screen, they say things that are horrible. They'd never say in person. I had fighters that people were telling them they should kill themselves, and just, it put them in such a bad headspace. And so they were getting the opportunity to talk about this, and how this individual was taking that pain and really turning into purpose. This person was leading some of the biggest kids programs that UFC gym had in the whole country. And I was like, okay, that to me is we're working on this. We're feeling pain, but we're redirecting it into something that's really, really meaningful. And I think that's the pleasure the pleasure that I'm getting out of doing this and turning it into purpose.
The ripple effects can be so great because you do that for one individual. They may be the pillar for somebody else, and you're just getting started here. I'm curious because I know obviously you've done a lot of education in this space as well, plus combined with your live experience where there's things you don't know until you know. So being Mental Health Month, what are some of the biggest learnings when it comes to suicide prevention, or even some of the statistics, so that we can have a broader awareness?
Well, the statistic that I shared, and it's I think sometimes it's tough for people to kind of get their heads wrapped around it because it doesn't seem like it's possible. But the first statistic is globally, we lose 1,900 people a day to suicide. I mean, that breaks down to every 41 seconds. So one, that kind of speaks to how large the challenge is globally, and it is a global issue. It's not strictly a US thing. So that's one, is just educating on the awareness of it. Then it becomes, okay, well, what can you do, right? What are the things? Well, there's some great foundations that are out there that can help people. One is, the NAMI was one that I was familiar with, National Alliance for Mental Illness. There's the AFSP, which is Association for Suicide Prevention. And those are two really good ones for connecting, for getting information. They're larger, well-established foundations that have been around for a while. But the biggest thing that I can say is the most challenging things are when someone does isolate, when they start to isolate themselves. So what can you do? And it can be hard. And sometimes everything that you want to do to try and help that person not isolate, they still may push you away. But I think getting away from isolation is one. And if they can't talk with friends, family, and encourage them, find a therapist, maybe even reach out and get them in contact with someone that they can get comfortable talking with. And if you can get them moving, whatever that is, whatever the activity is, pets a lot of times are you're forced to move, right? So sometimes having to take care of a pet can be something really positive if they can't get themselves up and out to do their own workout. But finding somebody, if you're finding someone that is struggling, encourage them to do some type of workout with you. And I just think the more that we can do things to get active, to be with somebody else, to find someone to be able to talk to. And look, sometimes at the end of the day, there may be some chemical things going on. So, talking to a psychiatrist and getting with a psychiatrist is very important too. But I really encourage that to be one of the later stages of things to do. When we go typically to the traditional medical, it's one of the first things. And I wish we could flip that.
I hear you. And I think we have a long way to go, but the conversations around that marriage, because it's exactly that. A lot of times, and unfortunately, even in Canadian healthcare, our system has ended up tremendously stressed and backlogged. And so there's very long waiting lists for this care, anyways. And oftentimes it is the quick fix that people end up obtaining. And we do know pharmaceuticals obviously make a lot of money. And so often it's the thing, take this pill, maybe you'll feel better. Which absolutely, if that's the route you for sure need, I don't discourage that. But I do think these foundations should be so much in place because at the end of the day, it's our regular maintenance. You would not drive a car if there was no oil, if it's running out of gasoline, and yet we try and run our lives, our brains, our bodies in the same way a lot of the time. Where I'm like, if you're consistently taking these steps, sure, life can derail and things can happen, but you have this foundation of tools to hold on to. And so, on that note, I know you've obviously been an incredibly active person who had these foundations and tools in your life, but how much did they increase in meaning as you were navigating your own grief in this tragedy?
Well, it became something like of critical importance. And it's, there's an element of too is you sort of become what you focus on. And if you're focused on your pain and you're focused on sadness, that's sort of something that you can become. So I hate the word distraction, but you do sort of need to a little bit to distract from things that you could be really ruminating about that were challenging your life. And you take that and you say, I'm going to have some new purpose to go and do these other elements too. So I think that it's taken on a tremendous role for me. And the goal for me on Sparkle is to get to where it's big enough that, I think this year, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, that I'd like to actually get a director for Sparkle, so I can kind of really be kind of the strategic and visionary. And who knows, maybe Chrissy can find my way back into the fitness space again. Cause I love it. I love doing all the mental health part of it, but I do know that fitness is that is something that always going to be in my blood.
Yeah, I was going to end up asking because obviously that would have been a big shift to all of a sudden make this your big focus. So, how has that transition been for you?
Right. So, I'm kind of sharing back to the personal tragedies that were there for 2 years. I didn't really, if I reflect on it, I didn't really take that much time for myself to really process and go through things. And so things just kind of worked out the right timing for me to take at least a break from fitness and use the gym. And now I'm in a new relationship that she had 25 years in the hotel industry. I had 30 in the fitness industry. Those are both 6-7 day weeks sometimes.
Yeah.
And right. And they don't hotels never close. Yeah, at least the gym closed on Christmas. So at least we got that. But so I think we were both in this space. And so now, we've been doing Spartans together.
Awesome.
We might triathlon may be something there. And then I've got to start doing the things that she wants, which is I got to do some golf, which I haven't done. And I got to figure out some snow skiing, so I'm going to get myself a little uncomfortable, but you got to do that. That's important to do. So we're having a lot of fun with that.
Oh, that's such an important facet of life in general. As you look forward, I mean, you've spoken a little bit of where you'd like to see Sparkle to go, but when you're looking at the big term plan for it, what do you envision? Because obviously you planted this little seed. 1 year later, there's so much momentum. So what's the ultimate goal and dream here?
Well, I think what Sparkle can be, I think, this partnership with Sparkle. So here's with Spartan, we've already had almost 200 people enter through Sparkle. And we've only done a few races so far this year. So I really think that's an opportunity. There's an opportunity to kind of, I think, bringing these two worlds together. Like Spartan is something that I found, I did my first one in 2021, right after my dad had passed. And it became something for me that was therapeutic. I mean, it was because I'd done triathlons, and triathlons are great, but they're kind of individual.
Right.
Every Spartan I've done it with at least one other person to as many as 10 other people. Right. And so you have these teams and it's fun and it's camaraderie. So it's these things that really, and it's physical, And it's these things that really help with the mental health as well. So here's the interesting thing. So Spartan last year in the US had 1.2 million competitors.
Wild.
I don't have the data, but I would guess 95% of those had a gym membership, right? I mean, you got to train somewhere, right?
Yep.
You got the weights and so forth. You got to be able to do. So in the US, there were 70 million people with a gym membership. So you start to say, okay, well, you know what? Is there a way to get people to be more comfortable and confident to do a Spartan? You talked about, Chrissy, about doing some different ways of training, and I think it is that's part of the fun. Is that, you know what? It's something really unique and different, because you go and you do a Spartan, you're like, sometimes I'm throwing a spear, sometimes I might be doing monkey bars, or I'm crawling under barbed wire, or climbing a rope, or there's just so many different things. Climbing a 6-7 foot wall. There's a lot of different things that the training for it is different every day. So if you can make fitness be your obsession, fitness be your addiction, there's no healthier thing that you can do.
And again, if you're investing in that, then you are not only investing in your own physical health, your social health, your mental health. So it all comes together. As we wrap up the conversation here, I want to know, what is your ultimate message for people? Because we know there's so much marketing that goes on with this month, and I don't think it discounts the message. It's important, but all of a sudden May passes by and there may be less conversations around mental health. So what would be your overarching message or takeaway that you hope people keep with them?
Chrissy, there's one that it stands out for me so much. And it wasn't a message that I really thought about or knew before going through the things that I've gone through on kind of having a loved one going through this, and then I'm being on the other side of, being a survivor of suicide loss. But the thing is, you're not alone. I think there's this feeling that, and that's part of the stigma, right? When you talk about this, breaking the stigma is people thinking, I'm alone. Nobody else knows what I'm going through. No one else could possibly be going through what I'm going through. And it's almost more people are going through something. Like, there's a shirt that I have that it says, be kind. And it says, every person that you know is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And I just think that knowing that, and having, I don't just want to come out and tell it to everybody, but having a few key people, close people that you can kind of talk to about things is really important. Or if you don't have you can reach out. Like, one of the things we're adding to our website on Sparkle is a place for people to tell their stories, to ask questions, to put up videos,
Amazing.
To be able to kind of create this place to say, you know what, here's sort of my mental health journey and the things that I'm going through. And so whatever it is, just know that you're not alone. Know that there's people you can talk to, they can reach out to me through the website, right? Or if anybody's got my cell phone or email for free, they're absolutely free to reach out to me. Because again, when you ask me what was the most rewarding part of this, or how do you know that it's making a difference, that's it. When someone feels comfortable enough to reach out and talk to me, and we can sort of have them feeling better or more empowered, or have some tools in the arsenal, or know something to do, right? Because it's so confusing. It's really, really confusing to go through this. You don't know where you can go for answers. And I just, you're not alone. And whatever you can do activity-wise, whatever you feel you can do it. Like, the more that you can move, the better it's going to be. So those would be kind of, Chrissy, my two overarching messages on this.
Well, and they're excellent ones, especially I appreciate how you say the reach out and you'll be there, but it's one of those things, as humans, innately, we want to just fix things with advice right away. But sometimes being that ear that you provided for others, there's something so powerful in even just witnessing someone else's pain and them knowing that they're seen in that. And ultimately, as you say, the knowing of not being alone. So I think as your message gets louder and louder, as your community grows, the ripple effect from even that one individual that you said gave you a call, just imagine what's going to fall into place beyond that. So I think you were on this mission to turn pain into purpose. You're doing a tremendous job of it. That momentum is only going to continue to grow. So I'm sure there's many people that are listening that want to support. So what would be some of the best ways to connect with Sparkle, and how could people contribute if they do have an appetite to support the cause?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. That's great. So I think that one of the best ways is our website, which is sparklecgf.org. And CGF is Carla Gallup Foundation. That's one. And there's a lot of great information. And again, we're doing a big ad with all of these vendor partners with education there, a place you can get links and more information. So that's a great place to go. You can follow on social media as Sparkle CGF on Instagram and Facebook. And I'm a lot of times, I haven't linked it to my account so a lot, and I've got more followers right now than the Sparkle. We're building it, right? So I've been putting some stuff on mine, which is just Derek Gallup on Instagram and Facebook. You can follow me there as well. So one is getting involved there, and again, there's donation opportunities through the website. The other thing you can do is do a Spartan challenge it, because here's what I'll tell you. If you use Sparkle, it's a simple, just remember, you go in there, whatever race you want to do. And there's races all across the country and international. Put in the code Sparkle, you get at least 30% off. It might be even more. It's a set flat rate that we get. But Spartan makes a really generous donation to Sparkle on your behalf.
Awesome.
So now you're making a donation. You're going out and challenge yourself to do something that's fun, hard. But again, if we do things that are hard, life is easier. And do it with a friend. It's it's one of those things, like, and the thing I'm going to tell you, the advice on Spartan: bring a really good towel and a change of clothes, because this last one I did in San Diego, it was the muddiest I've ever been. And we forgot the towel, and it wasn't the cleanest ride home.
Yeah. I was going to say rock, paper, scissors for whose car. And I guess Uber, I mean, that would be a 1-star instant rating.
It was my car, and I actually have a white interior. So that was, I needed to get clean right away after that.
Yeah. You should have just left it there like a badge of honor, You're like, we can do hard things. Look how muddy my inside of my car is. There's a detailer somewhere, I'm sure, that made bank off that. So, you're just paying it forward. But
that's right.
Derek Gallup, I will make sure that all of the info that you just shared is in the show notes of this episode. So if you're listening and you want to get involved, please just click along, and that will take you through to all the resources that he just mentioned. But Derek, I so appreciate your time and just commend you greatly for putting your voice behind this, and mainly the fact that you're so willing to do this and putting your own vulnerability behind it, because when you combine that and you show up as so human towards something you so believe in, there's no way that it won't impact other people. So thank you for the positive work that you are contributing to society, especially in a time that we truly do need it most.
Well, Chrissy, thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you for the opportunity, for the platform to be able to speak with you today. And I'm really, really looking forward to getting a chance to see you in person. Maybe we can do,
I'll start training.
We can do a 3.0. Actually, maybe we do a live remote from the Spartan. That
yes.
would be amazing.
Oh, at that, my wheels were already turning when we were talking about it. So I can't wait. I so appreciate your time, Derek.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chrissy.
And before we let you go, I do want to mention, if you want to see Derek Gallup in action, he will be speaking at the Club Solutions Leadership Retreat in San Antonio, Texas this September. You've just listened to the All Things Fitness and Wellness podcast, hosted by Chrissy Van. This episode was brought to you by Fitness World, your fitness, your way. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry insiders and influencers. Together, we're on a mission for everyone to live a life fit and well.